Parley. 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 Parsnip. Parsley. Partner. Parley. That's the one. Parley. 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 Damn to the depths whatever mutton they thought of parley. That would be the French.
Hey there, Retro Games fans. This is Andy C from Pieces of 8-Bit. So I said I wasn't going to do a video on Friday because I rather foolishly released my Tomb Raider 2 video early. Wondershare, which is what I use for editing my videos, changed the default setting from private to public. So when you publish a video, unless you explicitly tell it otherwise, it's immediately public. What I like to do is edit my videos, stick them up into YouTube, watch them back, make sure I haven't made any major gaffes, and then if I need to, edit and then resend. But obviously the freshly edited, still ink wet version of my Tomb Raider 2 review popped up, yes, thankfully there wasn't too much in there that was a problem, so I just kind of released it again in the end. But obviously it meant that I didn't have my video for Friday. So as it happens, Retro Red Steve tagged me in one of the VRs that's been doing the rounds from 8-Bit Boy UK, and it's the 3 best and 3 worst consoles, and quite a lot of people have been tagging on their gaming journey onto that as well. So I'm going to do that because ultimately it's not the most standard sort of gaming journey for me, so I need to kind of explain myself a little bit, so it'll help to frame the conversation somewhat. So first of all, thanks very much to Retro Red Steve for tagging me, and I just wanted to say as well, it's been absolutely incredible starting to do YouTube videos. Not been doing it all that long, not even 6 months yet, just coming up to, and it's uncovered a community that I just had no idea was actually there. And you know, all these people are going to events that I'm at without me even being aware of their kind of existence, really. So it's really fantastic to meet lots of people, and it's lovely to get a tag because it means that people are at least engaging with my content. So it's fantastic. So it's one of the things that really keeps me doing this, is just the fabulous community of other retro gamers out there that I can talk to and engage with. It's really great. You know, I love doing Retro Red Steve's racing challenge each month, even though most of the time I'm usually pretty hopeless at it. So anyway, I'll stop waffling on. Basically, I'm going to talk about my 3 best and 3 worst. Now, I'm very nervous about this, in as much as obviously a fairly new channel, and every subscriber is precious to me. So I'm really keen to not upset anybody. So I will just say this is absolutely my own opinion, and I've already seen a couple of responses to this already, and some of the things that people say are their worst are my favourite, and vice versa. So I'm going to try and just sort of explain myself a little bit as reasons why I've done it. Also, I'm going to bend the rules a little bit, because I'm going to talk about a couple of things that aren't technically consoles, but were things that I used to play on back in the day. So they were my introduction to gaming, or certainly my sort of access to gaming, certainly back in the 90s. So I'm going to talk about those in my best and worsts as well. So in no particular order, I'm going to dive straight into my favourites. So my first favourite, and I know Retro Red Steve, this is one of his worst ones. My favourite is this bad boy here, the PlayStation 2. Put it the right way up. Why do I like this? Well, this for me was the first brand new console that I actually bought with my own money as a growed up. It's got so many fond memories for me. I did have a PlayStation 1, and as you know, I have a fondness for the PlayStation 1. But I bought the PlayStation 1 right at the end of its lifetime, and everybody in the house that I was living in, I just graduated university, and everyone in the house had bought a PS2, and I bought a PS1 because it was cheap. I bought one second hand, had a load of games, foolishly gave it away. I can't even remember who to. I saw the PS2, and it absolutely blew my socks off. Love the PlayStation 2, so many great games on it. One of my absolute defining gaming moments was when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, and that for me was excusing the pun, an absolute game changer. I loved that game. It was everything I'd ever wanted in a game, and of course it was a PS2 exclusive at the time. But the other thing I really loved about the PS2 was it was it was a DVD player as well. You know, it was something that introduced DVDs. I did actually have a DVD player, but the PlayStation 2 was somehow better than it. And it was little attentions to detail that I really loved, like the fact that you could, if you were putting it vertical, you could have the logo this way, and if you're having it horizontal, you just move the logo. So the real attentions to detail, the little blue LED, which was the first time anyone had seen a blue LED. Just really great, and it was nice and expandable. Loads of great titles. So that is my my number 1 pick. My number 2 pick, and like I said, these are not in any particular order, is not actually, technically speaking, a console, but it is something that I absolutely adored, and something which I'm really pleased to say that has now been fixed. I have an Amiga 500 Plus. The Amiga 500 Plus I actually was actually given to me, but I never actually owned an Amiga. So technically this is where I'm bending the rules. It's neither a console nor something I technically owned. But I spent hours and hours and hours playing on the Amiga 500 at my friend's house when I was a teenager back in the 90s. And I have such fond memories of it. Such great times playing on that console. So here's my mini one, just for demonstration purposes only. And I just love it. It's just brilliant, and it's probably my favourite actually. And I said they weren't in no particular order, but it's probably my favourite. I have the fondest memories of that. Playing games like Lotus Turbo Challenge, Stunt Car Racer, Zool, Magic Pockets, James Pond, Robocard. It was just, the list was just went on and on and on. There was so many. Loved all the things like the Desert Strike and Jungle Strike. Lemmings, which is the best version there was absolutely on the Amiga. What else? There was just loads. There was loads. Just such a long list of games that I just adored from the 90s. So for me, the Amiga absolutely has to be in that spot. Now, the next one's kind of difficult for me because I didn't own an Amiga, but I did play on it back in the day. A lot of the consoles that I have now, and I'll talk to you about this a little bit later on in the video when I talk about my gaming journey. A lot of the consoles I never really owned. I didn't own a console that I bought with my own money until I was an adult. So I tended to go around friends' houses and play. I was very fortunate that all through the 80s and 90s I knew people who had different consoles or different things like Spectrum, Commodores, Amigas, all those kind of things. So I'd be around my friend's house a lot playing. And so I didn't really own a console. So things like the SNES, the Master System, Mega Drive, all of those sorts of things, I couldn't really, in all good honesty, put those in a rating because I never really owned them. The Amiga I played so much, I feel obliged to mention that because I have such fondness for it. But everything else, really, I didn't own until much later on, bought secondhand. So, I did own consoles much more as an adult, very dominated by Sony. But there was one console which I did own, and it was the same era as the PlayStation 2, and another console which I have a huge fondness for, and I think ultimately it was quite an underrated console, and that is this little thing, the GameCube. So this is my GameCube. This is my GameCube. This isn't my original GameCube. So I did own the GameCube. I had the purple one, and I really loved this thing. I loved it. There was some games on here that I absolutely adored. So I loved Zelda Wind Waker, which I know to a lot of Zelda purists is not proper Zelda, but I just thought it was brilliant. And there were so many fun sort of link-up games. As Rogue Squadron 2 I really enjoyed. Eternal Darkness, which you've probably heard me talk about before, which is one of those games that just should have been a franchise. I don't know why it wasn't. It was sort of had that kind of real like Resident Evil feel about it. It was a really good game. I really enjoyed it, played it from beginning to end. But then you had all your classic Mario titles. Mario Sunshine, which drove me up the wall, but a good Mario game. You'd got Mario Kart Double Dash, which was really fantastic. I've got Wave Race. So some really, really good games. And actually today, as it happens, just today, I went into CEX near where I live, and they had a boxed version of, fully boxed, of the Donkey Kong bongos. I think it was £20, maybe £25. And it comes with the game and everything. And funny thing is, I used to go around my friend's house when I first started working, and we used to play on Donkey Kong bongos. And we would go around and we played all different games. We'd go out for an hour for lunch. He lived just around the corner. We go and play on the PlayStation 2. We play on the GameCube. And it was two grown men sitting in his living room playing on Donkey Kong bongos. And there was a moment when the penny dropped and went, "What are we doing? This is a kid's game. Why are we playing Donkey Kong bongos on a Nintendo console in our lunch hour from our professional job?" So yes, I really love the GameCube. There's so many that I could have picked. I love most of the PlayStations, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because there may be one that features in my next list. I love the PSP. I love the PS1. Controversially, I quite like the PS5, to be honest. I think the PS5 is a good machine. It's an absolute beast, but it's a good machine. You play your PS4 games on there. There's the PlayStation Network is so much better than it used to be. So I like the PS5. But yeah, I had to pick one. So the GameCube is the one. The PS2, absolutely, if I had to pick a PlayStation, would be my favourite. So those are my 3 favourite consoles. So what are my 3 worst consoles? And again, in the vein of the Amiga, I'm going to pick something that is not a gaming console. So in the 90s, everybody had Amigas or Atari STs. We had a PC. And I can hear PC gamers out there screaming now. I have no issue with PC gaming. As many of you know, I have a ROG Ally, which is a little PC in a handheld, and it's absolutely fabulous, and I love it. But PCs in the 90s were a very different affair. So we had a 386, and it could play games, but the problem with it is that it had very little storage. So one of my favourite games from that time was Summer Max Hit the Road, and you couldn't really install that on a 40 meg hard drive. You'd have to remove something like Windows, which I did once. That's a story for another day. But it just had no space on it, and it didn't have a sound card, so everything was BP. And this was at a time when I was going around my friend's house playing on the aforementioned Amiga, and you'd got games, these beautiful colour games with fantastic audio and sound, and I'm at home trying to squeeze one game onto the hard drive, and it was beeping and everything else. Now, I get that PCs weren't gaming machines back then, not like they are now, but as a gaming machine, it was pretty rubbish and annoying, and I envied everybody who had something else. Now, of course, we had a PC in our house because it was something people did work on, but yeah, as a gaming machine, I mean, I did spend a fair bit of time on it, and there were some games that I found that I enjoyed, some of the Dizzy games and things like that I enjoyed, but even Dizzy, the audio on it was just shocking without a sound card. So it wasn't really until, I think, the 486 generation when people started getting Sound Blaster 16s and things like that in their PCs when it actually became viable to play games on it. I remember seeing Prince of Persia on my friend's 486 and just thinking that's amazing, and he had a 500 megabyte hard drive. That was incredible. What an amazing thing. But yeah, the 386 PC from the early 90s, which was a gaming, my personal access to gaming at the time, absolute rubbish. Hated it. Okay, so the next one is really a bit, probably the next 2 are actually quite controversial. Gaming PC was one. Now, as I mentioned, a PC which isn't a console, I'm going to just list another 3 quickly, and one of them is definitely controversial, and I know some people are going to get cross with me. So I'm a big Sony PlayStation fan, but for me, one of my least favourite consoles is this. This is the PS Vita. Now, please don't switch off in your droves, and please don't get me wrong. As a piece of hardware, this thing is brilliant. I love it. It is fantastic. It's got a beautiful screen on it. Considering the age of it, it's quite old now. Beautiful screen on it. Lots of extra, inputs and all that kind of thing. It was also the PlayStation TV, which was basically a PlayStation Vita, but in a something you put on your television. You can stream your PS4 to it. A really lovely little bit of kit. So why do I hate it? I don't hate it, for one. I definitely don't hate it. But why is it one of the worst consoles? It's one of the worst consoles because it suffers from a classic Sony problem of totally neglecting a piece of hardware. Sony kind of get cold feet with things. They did it with, they're doing it now with VR a little bit. They've done it with so many of their technologies. They get cold feet with it, and then you never hear said of it ever again. The Vita suffered from poor marketing and poor support, and it also suffered from another Sony classic problem of having proprietary memory cards, which even now, picking up a second-hand Memory Stick Pro Duo 2 for the PS Vita is ludicrously expensive. So the reason it's in my list is because I love the Vita as a piece of hardware, and it was massively underserviced by Sony, and it really annoys me because it could have been so much better. And I know it could have been so much better because this thing, the PSP, one of the best handheld consoles there's ever been, and in my opinion one of my favourites, has loads of games. It's a fantastic device, way ahead of its time. Sorry Nintendo, but I think this is better than most offerings that Nintendo have ever put out there. I love the PSP. And again, please don't switch off. It's just my opinion. And don't get me wrong, I love the Game Boy, and I love the Sega Game Gear from Sega, and I love the DS and all those kind of things. But I adore the PSP. It was brilliant. It was a PS2 in your pocket. It was fantastic, great screen, everything else. And Sony went to town with it. They properly looked after this thing, and so there was some great titles and great games on it. The Vita should have been the same, but it wasn't, and that makes me sad. So the next one, the next one, I'm just sorry in advance of this because I know I'm going to get hate for this. The next one is, please don't hate me, is this, the N64. Now, technically speaking, I didn't own an N64 back in the day, and I did play on the N64. This was more of a recent acquisition. I just don't really like it very much. It's not a bad console, and there are some absolute classics on there, and let's not forget GoldenEye. Yes, I know, I hear you all screaming, GoldenEye is amazing, and it is good. My issue with this, not so much the games. I mean, yeah, the issue at this point in the cycle, obviously this is at the same time as the PS1 and the Saturn. You've got CDs coming out, and you've got CD, like games, you could do so much more because there was more storage. Yes, this loaded quicker, but it was a cartridge and it felt old, and the games were ludicrously expensive for the time. They'd still be considered expensive now. But yeah, it wasn't just that. My issue with it, and I've picked my yellow because I have a couple of controllers for this, is this. I'm sorry, but this controller is stupid. Again, please don't hate me. Now, there have been plenty of stupid controllers out there. Forgive me if you think this is amazing. I totally disregarded the Duke on the Xbox and have been, and I'm big enough and ugly enough to admit that I was wrong. It's actually quite a decent controller. And in fact, all of the Xbox controllers, he says under his breath, are actually pretty good. This, I cannot get on with it. It's too massive. And I mentioned the GameCube, so the thing that came after this, the GameCube controller I quite like, and I know that's probably also quite controversial. I don't mind the controller even on the Wii U or the Wii controllers for that matter, but this one, yes, okay, so it's not Atari Jaguar style of craziness, but I really don't get on with this. I like the Dreamcast one better, and that is quite controversial. But it's just like, the problem I have with it is this, and like the joystick's in the middle here, and then it's just sort of like it's so far away from the buttons, you kind of need three hands to do it, and then you've got the trigger underneath as well, which when you're playing GoldenEye, of course, makes great sense because you can use it like a gun. So games that were built for this controller were good. But for a lot of games, it was just a nuisance, and I just didn't get on with it. So those are my three picks. Like I said, my opinion. Please don't hate me for the N64 one because I know there's a lot of love for the N64, and I've heard people say they don't like the PS2, and that's fine. That's their opinion, that's cool. This is an opinion piece. So I've no hate for anybody who hates the PS2. In the same way, please don't have any hate for me for the N64. So there is one other dishonourable mention, and as a Sony fanboy, it hurts me to say this a little bit. You can probably see it lurking behind me here. So this isn't one that I mean, to be honest with you, let me clear this up as well, just to say, I don't hate really any of these consoles. I own them, I like them, I enjoy them, but it's kind of like, the worst, as in what's my least favourite. I think so. Let's just set the record straight on that, because there are some consoles that, that I don't think there's a console that I own that I explicitly don't like. Like I said, I don't like the controller on the N64. I specifically don't like that. I don't dislike the N64. I just don't love it. Not like the PS2 or the the PSP or any of the other picks that I've mentioned before. So there is one dishonourable mention, and that is this beast, the PS3. And again, I have a complicated relationship with the PS3. So yeah, I owned a launch PS3, which was which broke. Yellow light of death, pretty standard fare. And like I said, I don't hate the PS3, and the reason why it gets a dishonourable mention is because it probably doesn't really belong in my three worst consoles. It's sort of complicated. So at the start of the generation, yes, it absolutely did. At the end of the generation, no, it absolutely didn't, and I'll explain myself. So PS3 on launch. It was very expensive. That was the first problem. It was a pricey bit of kit, and it's a lovely looking bit of kit. The original launch PlayStation 3, I think, is a nice looking machine, an absolute beast. Seconded only by the PlayStation 5, but it was a nice looking machine. But it was unfortunately very, very complicated to develop for. So it meant that launch titles were somewhat few and far between, which meant that it kind of launched a bit weakly, in my opinion. I was able to go and pick a PlayStation 3 up from game on the day of launch without pre-ordering. I just suddenly thought, do you know what? I might fancy buying a PS3. Walked into the town where I lived, went into game, walked in and said, "You got any PS3s?" And they went, "Yeah." And I picked one up and I came home and then spent ages updating the software before I could play on it. But and that was the beginning of those days as well, of course, when your games needed updating. In the PS2 generation, you put your game in, you played it. So that was my first introduction to, I'd like to play this game. Oh, well, that's okay. You'll need to download an update over your network, which at the time was probably ADSL 500k. So that was somewhat irritating. Lack of game support. My biggest issue with the PlayStation 3 when it launched was the stupid controller that it came with, the 6-axis. So I think Sony had some kind of copyright or patent infringement or something with the Rumble Pack. And so they weren't able to include the Rumble Pack for whatever reason on the PlayStation 3 at launch, and we got this pathetic, light, plasticky piece of rubbish that was the 6-axis, with Sony trying to fob it off as being the next generation of controller. Who needs Rumble Pack anyway? You've got this controller and you can tilt it and you can use it to control your games instead of using the sticks. And I wanted to love it. I really, really wanted to love it. There was a game that came out called Lair, which I really wanted to love. You flew around on dragons, and you flew your dragons around with the 6-axis controller, and it was rubbish. It was rubbish. It was infuriating, and as much as I tried, because I argued the toss with the Xbox gamers, I towed the party line with Sony and said, yeah, you don't need Rumble Pack. Who needs Rumble Pack? It's a load of rubbish. It's all about 6-axis. You guys on the Xbox, you won't have it. I look back in hindsight and think, what an idiotic thing to say. The 6-axis was thankfully replaced by the DualShock 3, thankfully, which also had 6-axis control in it as well, so you kind of got both, which was great. So that improved as the generation went on. Lair, which was a game that I wanted to love, and even when they patched it and allowed you to use the sticks, was still rubbish. So that was annoying. And the other thing that really irritated me with the PlayStation was that I felt like we got a bum deal in Europe. And in Japan, the PlayStation 2 was fully backwardly compatible, and we were joking to the Xbox fanboys, like, yeah, you haven't got backward compatibility with your new console that's coming out. We'll have it with the Sony. It's Sony's thing. They'll always provide backward compatibility. And when the PlayStation 3 was announced, it was backwardly compatible with PS2 games. Amazing, great, fantastic, we think. Except in Japan it was hardware, so it didn't really need to be emulated. You could pretty much play PlayStation 2 games native. When it launched sometime later in Europe, they'd removed that to cut costs, and we only had software emulation, which was at best rubbish. It wasn't great. The game support for it was pretty pants, and it was okay. It was okay. It meant, though, that I could get rid of my PlayStation 2. Thankfully, I didn't sell it. I gave it to my in-laws. where it sat happily, having a little bit of out to pasture moment for about 15 years. And then my PlayStation 3 broke with the infamous yellow light of death, and I could no longer play any of my PlayStation 2 games anymore because I had to replace it with a Slim, which also broke, I might add. And then I had a third. I actually am on my original PlayStation. I got rid of, so I don't know where that is nowadays. I've got my original PlayStation 2, my original PlayStation 4, and my original PlayStation 5. I did have to rebuy my PSP because I sold that as well, and I've got my original PS Vita. So that none of those machines, touch wood, broke down. The PS3 broke down 3 times, or 2 times actually. So that was a bit of a nuisance. So yeah, but towards the end of its life, it had some amazing games. You know, let's not forget that's where GTA 5 first appeared on the PS3. That's just how long ago that was. And that was an insane game. That was insane, massive game. GTA 4, sorry, also a really, really good game. Some fantastic games that I enjoyed on the PS3. I got quite a few of them. I kept all my PS3 games. Just looking here. Oh yes, Red Dead Redemption. Who can forget about that? And of course, that was when we were introduced to the Assassin's Creed series, which the second Assassin's Creed game is definitely my favourite. The Ezio Auditore ones were brilliant. So towards the end of its life, brilliant, great console. But at the beginning of its cycle, Sony very nearly misstepped. And at the same time, obviously around a similar time, you had the Vita. And I think people started to think that Sony was maybe losing the plot, and this was the beginning of the end. Clearly, they demonstrated with the PS4 and then subsequently the 5 that isn't the case. But yeah, so dishonourable mention for the PS3 there, just at least at the start of its cycle. Early cycle PS3 dishonourable mention. So right, I'm going to talk about my gaming journey now, which sort of reflects a little bit on some of the things I've spoken about. A rather unusual journey in that there wasn't a lot of consoles in that life until I was an adult. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that now. Thanks for watching so far. Please feel free to switch off if you're just interested in the VR bit for the 3 and 3 and 3. Yes, that's probably it. Stay to the end for the tags for who I might want to pick this up next. So yeah, let's dive straight into my gaming journey from the 80s until now. So I'm going to try and talk you through my gaming journey a little bit now, and I'll try and keep this brief because I realised that my 3 and 3 bit lasted a lot longer than I thought it would do. So I'm going to just talk through it a little bit very, very quickly, just to kind of give you a bit of a flavour for why I picked perhaps some of the consoles that I picked. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about this decade by decade. So in the 80s, I did not own a console, and I was very fortunate to know plenty of people that did. And I say consoles, typically most of my gaming was getting done on Spectrums and Commodore 64s. I actually owned a Dragon 32, so my parents bought it for me second-hand one Christmas. And there were a couple of games I played on that until the tape drive broke. And in fact, actually, that's how I got into programming, because which is my career now, and largely because I couldn't load anything, so the only way I could do anything was to write little basic programs out of the book and modify them and play little games. And of course, as soon as you switched it off, it was lost forever, and you'd have to do it again because there was no way of storing it. So limited appeal, needless to say. But I did know some people who owned various, say not so much consoles back in the 80s actually. I did play on consoles from time to time, played on the NES and a couple of other bits and pieces. But didn't really know anybody that owned anything until console-wise until the 90s. So Spectrum, Commodore 64, very much the Spectrum. Used to go around my friend's house, we'd load a game, go outside for 10 minutes while it loaded. We'd go down the video shop, and they had a carousel, and we would spend our pocket money and buy a game for a couple of pounds because we liked the look of the tape, the graphics on the back of the tape, and go, that looks cool, let's try that, and load it up. And sometimes it didn't work, and that was the sort of fun of it. So games I remember playing back in the 80s, games like Night Law, which I've seen me review before, Impossible Mission on the Commodore 64, which was a game that I absolutely loved. I thought that was amazing, and go and watch my review to hear what I thought about that. The original Ghostbusters game. And then on things like the BBC, occasionally got to play games on there, so games like Chucky Egg, Elite, although I don't play Elite so much, but certainly it's something I remember. A few Star Wars games, so quite a lot of bits and pieces in the 80s. And I knew as a gamer, I just really enjoyed it, and I love going to the arcade and playing things like, you know, Outrun. I like Outrun. I'm always mentioning Outrun. Chase HQ. What other games that I love? Those two are probably my two favourites. But I mean, there was so many. Operation Wolf was another game I really enjoyed. Things like that. So, and I loved seeing the ports across to their computer equivalents. You know, like playing Chase HQ on the Spectrum Plus 2. You know, and things like that. So. That was my gaming experience through the 80s, largely a shared one with friends, which is great, in my opinion. I got so many fond memories of that. In the 90s, we bought our first PC, and I mentioned that earlier. So, you know, I was able to play games a little bit more at home, but obviously quite limited in terms of what I could do. And at this point, you know, I as I mentioned before, you know, I had friends who'd got Amigas and Atari ST. I had a friend who had a 3DO, Panasonic 3DO, which is quite an unusual one. First introduction to Need for Speed, which was amazing. Pretty sure I know someone who had a Mega CD. I couldn't remember whether it was a Saturn or a Mega CD. I'm pretty sure it was a Mega CD, and I remember playing a game which was like some kind of murder mystery thing, and it was actually like the video CD playback on it, which was like, you know, that's amazing, you know, like video CD playback. And this was obviously the days before the PlayStation 1. And I know people that got Mega Drive and SNES and all those kind of things, so, you know, I got to play on a lot of that, but again, didn't own a console through certainly not the first part of the 90s. So that was really cool. So yeah, that was the 90s. Lots of gaming that happened, mostly PC gaming, I think. And it wasn't until I went to university in the mid 90s when I bought a 486, and that opened my eyes to things like Doom and Quake and things like that, Prince of Persia. I was able to do that, and I actually bought my 486 second hand. Finished my first year at uni, bought this 486 second hand for my second year, thinking it'll be great because it'll be Windows 3.1 because that's what uni has, so I only needed 486 for that. Went back and they'd upgraded to Windows 95. So that was the first time that I built myself a new PC in the sort of case chassis of the 486 and used some of the bits, and that kind of got me into that side of things. So and then once obviously at that point I had an AMD K6, which was equivalent of a Pentium 2, and then that was another whole world of games then unlocked of things that I could play. So lots of PC gaming all the way through the 90s, and you know, I started playing newer Need for Speed games and things like that. So Need for Speed 2 is a game that I reviewed at the very beginning of my channel, which is a game I really liked, and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, things like that. A lot of that stuff was played on PC. But I did, again, through the 90s, know people with consoles. I knew a friend who had a Game Boy, and I used to go around his house for tea on once a week, and we'd play on the Game Boy. And like I said, I mentioned somebody who had a 3DO, and so we'd go and do that. And obviously through the 90s, as I've already mentioned, it was all about the Amiga for me. I used to go around my friend's house and play on his Amiga for hours and hours and hours, and I loved it, and it was amazing. So that was really, you know, I knew I was a gamer. I just didn't have the money to go and buy the kit for myself. And it's not like I had a hard life as a childhood, as a child, and through my childhood, you know, my parents just didn't, you know, it was a luxury item, and we just didn't really have the ability to kind of get it. It just wasn't top of the priority, and it wasn't really something that we would even felt we would ask for Christmas. I just don't think, you know, my parents really saw the point of it, and maybe they were right, you know, but so, you know, my gaming sort of purchase experience didn't really start happening until the late 90s when I was working, and started with someone who had a Dreamcast. He brought his brother's Dreamcast round to the house, and that was absolutely fantastic, and we loved playing on that, and Crazy Taxi and Ready to Rumble boxing and all those kinds of things was great fun. And then people started getting PS2, and that was, as I mentioned before, the first sort of new console that I bought, and I was so excited to get it, and I have so many fond memories of that. So once I was into the Sony generation, you know, once I bought a PS2, that was it. I was hooked on the PlayStation, and I had all of the PlayStations up to the PlayStation 5 and the Vita and the PSP. My PSP I sold, sadly, and I've had to buy another one, although the one that I've got is absolutely amazing. I kept most of them. I kept the Vita, I kept the PS2, I kept the PS3, the third PS3 that I bought, and the 4 and the 5. Obviously the 5, that's brand new. The only bit of Sony kit that I haven't got, that I gave away not that long ago actually, was the VR1, which I gave to my brother. So yeah, it's not really a console, so I sort of treat it in that space, and I haven't got anywhere to put it. I've got the VR2, I've got anywhere to put the VR1 as well, on top of everything else that's in the house. So very much PlayStation, until quite recently, really, until I got back into retro gaming. So I already had all the PlayStations. I had quite a lot of Nintendos. I had the GameCube, which I sold. Then I bought the Wii, which I also sold, and then bought another one years ago when the kids were a bit older. Skipped the Wii U, and we've got 2 Switches as well. So quite a lot of Nintendos in the house. Also had a GBA and a DS. We had the first DS and a 3DS. We've just got 3DS on the shelf behind me, but it's not the original one. So yeah, quite a lot of handhelds as well through that time. So and these have been because I've been able to afford to do it. And so, you know, I don't have a massive games collection, as you can see. You know, a lot of what you can see here is my games collection. Really, my games collection is in the hundreds, not in the thousands, and probably will probably stay that way. I'm in awe of some of the games collections that some other YouTubers have got. You know, it looks amazing, but yeah, probably not something I'm going to get into. I just don't have the space or the money to do it. Who knows? Who knows? In 10 years' time, I might be living somewhere else and I might have a room full of games. You don't know. You never know. But I'm happy to have all of the consoles that I wanted. That collection is pretty much complete now. So yeah. So actually, my retro gaming sort of experience has been relatively recent in terms of the actual consoles themselves. The retro gaming experience for me is something I've always been interested in. But it's largely been through emulation, things like the Raspberry Pi, and before that through sort of PC emulators and that kind of thing. So I've done a lot of that. Yeah, I love all of this, and this is kind of what got me into it. It's like an entry-level drug. You start with Raspberry Pi, and the next thing you know, you're buying consoles all over the place and the games to go on them. So, but I love it. It's great fun. I've really enjoyed collecting all those consoles. But say a lot of them fairly recent. I mean, things like the N64, which I picked up, the original Xbox. As you know, I'd never even owned an Xbox until 6 months ago, and now I have all of them. Like 4 of them. Xbox 360, the original Xbox, Xbox One S, and the Xbox One Series X. They're all really good, actually. I quite like them. I hate to say it, and go and watch my Xbox video to hear more on that. But yeah, so that's my gaming journey. A little bit eclectic, not standard. You know, I didn't have all of the kit. I just was very fortunate to know everybody that did. So I got to play on a lot of different platforms without actually owning a lot of different platforms. And now I'm the one with all the different platforms. It's just that most of them are like 20, 30, 40 years old. But I love them. I absolutely love them. So yeah, so there you go. That's my gaming journey. So that's me. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you're still watching. I need to tag some people to do this, to pick this up next. So I'm just going to do that first. So the 3 people I'd like to tag to do this VR as well. I'd love to hear from you. First is going to be Evesham Gamer. So I'm also someone from Evesham. So Evesham Gamer reached out to me. I was like, oh, there's an Evesham Gamer. It's obvious he was from Evesham because that was his tag. Really nice guy, really interesting videos that he does, and I think probably at some point we're going to catch up for a beer maybe and talk nerdy stuff and geeky stuff, and yeah, that'll be really cool. So Evesham Gamer is my first tag. ZX Tetley is my next one. So someone that watches my videos, and I've watched some of his, and I love some of his old retro consoles that he's got, and some of his comparison videos that he does. So I'd love to hear what his top 3 favourite and worst consoles are. I think that would be fascinating. And Mark Goes Blind Gaming. So I absolutely love his videos. They make me howl. They are so funny, and I really enjoy it. It's such a good laugh and makes me chuckle all the time. Obviously, I'd love to tag Retro Red Steve, but he already did that already. He also makes me laugh in his videos on multiple occasions. But yeah, Mark Goes Blind Gaming he's been having a bit of a battle with YouTube just lately as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear what he thinks on that. So, next up on the channel, yeah, I should just say, by the way, it is entirely optional, of course. You don't have to do any of those if you don't want to do it. That's great. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So yes, anyway, yes. Coming up on the channel then, we have got quite a lot of things coming up. I have got a new console inbound, which I will talk to you about soon, and it's probably going to live in my living room to replace the PlayStation 1 for a month. I will talk to you about that. There might be some unboxing that happens with it because it's new. That's probably a bit of a clue. That actually comes very, very soon. Obviously, I mentioned the PlayStation review 1 month with a series that I'm going to be starting. So that's going to be coming back in here soon, and I'll be reviewing what it's been like to live with the PS1, as you know, if you've watched any of my other videos. And then loads of other things I've got planned coming up as well, which I won't bore you with the details of, but I'll talk to you a little bit about that as and when that comes up. So yes, that's coming up, and yeah, that's probably it. So thanks very much for sticking and watching this. If you've got this far, thank you so much. If you enjoy these videos, please do love is that love and subscribe button, like and subscribe my videos, much appreciated. I'm not going to labour the point like I always do, but yeah, please do hit that like and subscribe button, and yeah, I think that's probably it for now. Love to hear your comments and thoughts on this on these topics, and please do a VR yourself if you want to, of course, as well. It's 8-Bit Boy UK's VR, and yes, I really enjoyed doing it. So yeah, please do your own as well, and let me know. And yeah, that's probably it. So take care of yourselves until the next time. Bye for now.